we're going to tour the town and point out to you, yes, some of these great historic buildings, tell you a little of their history. So, without further ado, let's start. For instance, the start date for the tower should be the year 1066, the time of William, the Duke of Normandy, William the Conqueror, having just defeated the Saxon king, Harold II, the Battle of Hastings. He shortly afterwards captures this city. Then, Christmas Day, the very same year, down the River Thames here, Westminster Abbey, he's crowned as King William I of England. But all is not well in the realm, for even though William has defeated the Saxon army, he's not defeated its people. And it takes him a further 12 years of campaigning across the nation, fighting his newly conquered Saxon subjects. But after 12 years, he returns here, London, eastern part of his city, authorises, well, the building of this, his home, the first royal palace and fortress built here, the realm of England. A mighty Norman keep, it's called the White Tower, stands over here, the centre of the grounds. But please don't bother looking, because you can't see it from here. But we will, I promise you, go inside shortly, yes, have a closer look. But over the centuries that follow, successive monarchs continue to build and add to the tower's defences. What we can see from here today are two defensive walls, the inner outer ballium. Inner wall built around the White Tower, the year 1220. The lower outer wall follows 60 years later. Shortly afterwards, in front of it, is constructed the tower's first line of defence. It's moat, fully dug out, excavated 15 feet deeper than what we can see today. In fact, there's still a bridge that once spanned it. The moat, dug deeper in the Thames, the idea being when the river's tide here goes out, water stays in the moat. When the tide comes in, it flushes the moat, keeps it clean. 5 centuries, the system worked well, but by 1843 it had failed. The reason, London, for the buildings which still today dot the tower's skyline. Those that stood there before, well, the sewage outfall pipes had found their way here into the moat, turning it into the largest open toilet in London. But hey, what a line of defence. And so, 1843, Queen Victoria has the moat drained and filled in to the present level you no doubt have seen today. But, as I said only a short time ago, the tower, the first royal palace and fortress built here in England, stood here now for just under 8,000 years. During that time, the royal family, they've used it for many purposes, and it may come as a surprise to some of you to note, yes, they still use the tower today. Many, though, of its original purposes and uses have been lost in the midst of time, so I suppose before we move on from here, well, we should cover a few. The tower, originally built as a citadel to command and defend the city of London. We still, of course, use the tower to house the crown jewels and the royal regalia. In fact, they've been here safe secure since the year 1306. Here too, the nation's first public records office, its first royal observatory, an arsenal, a royal mint, and would you believe it, for 600 years, a public zoo. However, we more famously know the tower as a prison, a place of dread torture and execution. But you'd be surprised to note, in those days at least, very few of our prisoners were actually to perish in the walls. Indeed, at that time, it was considered one of the greatest of privileges to be executed here. No, I know, different. The vast majority of our prisoners sentenced to death would be taken up there behind you, Tower Hill, site of the City of London's public execution spot. And there, Tower Hill, just beyond that ancient ice cream van, 125 famous men, prisoners of the tower, were to suffer. It was there on top of a temporary platform, a scaffold, by means of a block and axe. Those poor souls' heads would be cut from their bodies. Once this had occurred, their heads still bleeding, forced onto the end of a metal-tipped pike, held aloft in the air with great joy and jollity. Yeah, I guess humour was somewhat different in those days. Their heads taken down into London Bridge, placed there often with many others to rot and serve as a warning to all who would enter the city. Meanwhile, the headless bodies returned to the tower by means of a hand cart for a hasty burial within the hallowed walls of the Chapel Royal of St. Peter and Vincula, the very place we, like those dead bodies, will end our tour today. Judging by some of your faces, you need a hand cart already. But if you'd like to leave a small gap, I think it's time I let you on into the outer ward of this, the tower. So come on then, let's go.